Hi everyone, hope you can see me. Welcome to another video in the garden, and I actually just want to do a fairly quick video today just about sharing the garden and the joy that comes with that, and also some of the lessons that the garden teaches us, because after all we started out as a species, if you like, in a garden, and yeah, I think that's pretty special, and being out in the garden just seems to connect you more to what life's really about, I guess, and the lessons that you learn in a garden can sometimes be applied to life. So a bit of a philosophical, gee, that word hurt, video today on on the garden and the things that it can sort of do for you, even beyond getting food out of it and those sorts of things. So I'm sitting under one of the mulberry trees at the moment because it's quite warm, and pulling out some weeds and thinking, there's some lessons here in weed pulling about renewing things, as well as sometimes we kind of get a bit caught up in the whole weed debacle that we sort of forget some of them are useful, and not just useful for us to eat but also useful for the ground. They can replenish minerals and things like that if they're made into a compost tea, if you like, and also they cover the ground, so that's useful. They are trying to heal the ground. They're sort of like I don't know, God's massage therapist for the earth. I don't know, something like that. And they're trying to heal the broken ground, because when it gets dried out and there's nothing covering it over, it's not really good for growing anything aside from weeds, which is sort of the first we learnt in ecology. I did do an ecology course that not many people know about because I don't talk about it much, but I did do a certificate in ecology. It was just a attainment type thing, just a certificate 1, if you like, of ecology, just out of interest. And we actually learnt in that course that, like, if you have a bare patch of ground, it actually starts with weeds, because they're trying to build the soil underneath. They're trying to cover the soil so that the microbes and things can move in, and then they'll die off and they'll provide nutrient to that soil, and then so on and so forth. Things start to grow, grasses start to grow because there's now nutrient in the soil. There's now that bacterial domination starting to happen because those weeds have provided that nitrogen. And then you kind of go up from there. The grass starts to die off and it provides more nutrients, and depending on those nutrients you might get like a shrub layer or a herb layer, and so on and so forth, until you end up with forestry, if that's the type of area that you're in, and it doesn't get burnt or destroyed in the meantime. So yeah, that's sort of like the basis of ecology, which is also the basis of the food forest that I'm actually sitting in, as far as the different levels. But we sort of speed it up a bit by putting the manures down as the nitrogen that the weeds, which can be herbs, weeds would provide ordinarily, and then we're putting wood chips on top to create that fungal domination that happens when trees fall in the forest and things that are sort of woody fall, and they create that fungal environment so that other trees enjoy that, and you can grow your more your more nutrient seeking trees, I guess, because there's more nutrients in the soil. So we're looking at fruit trees and things like that, because they need more nutrients to make the yummy fruits that they provide, and beyond that they're providing shade and cover and all those sorts of things. So the ground wants to cover itself, which we did talk about a little bit last week, about soil versus dirt, but I kind of wanted to go a bit deeper on some of the lessons that the garden has taught me, and that's certainly one of them. That weeds aren't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, they're somewhat painful to pull them out all the time, but and some of them are useful, as I said. Some of them you can actually eat, like purslane, and I don't know, there's like a blue flower one, I can't remember the name of it right now, but you can eat that one. Don't go eating it if you don't know what it is, please, because there's a couple of different, like purple flower and blue flower ones, but one of those in particular you can eat, and I can't remember the name of it, so don't go eating it, because I haven't given you the name because I can't remember it. But there's one that you shouldn't eat too, so yeah, just be mindful of that. But there's also like wild mints, there's all sorts of things you can eat. You can actually eat cobbler's pegs. You can eat the whole plant of the cobbler's pegs. They're not very tasty, so you'd be putting them in smoothies, I would imagine, if that's what you want to do. They're very good bitters, so really good for digestion and problems with reflux and that sort of stuff as well. Because they've got that bitter, they help with the production of hydrochloric acid and bile and those sorts of things. So yeah, you can eat your farmer's friends or your cobbler's pegs. You can eat sunflower seeds from wild sunflowers. Just make sure that they're actually sunflowers. What else can you eat? You can eat mulberry leaves, but they don't taste very nice. They are actually a natural wormer for animals, and we use them as such sometimes. They've kind of got a bitter taste as well, a bit like a passion fruit leaf, which is pretty bitter, pretty horrible. Don't really like the passion fruit leaf, but you can eat that. There's quite a few that you can actually eat that are growing. I'm just, purslane was the first one that came to mind because I just pulled some of that out. I am letting some of it grow as well, where I don't mind it being, because it is really, really high in omega-3, which is awesome. The problem is, though, with animals like us, is we actually don't utilize omega-3 apparently in a plant form. We can only utilize it as like a protein form, like a fish or something like that, apparently. I haven't actually seen the recent studies on that to say whether a higher concentrate of it might be beneficial because the others are lower, or what the latest information on that is. But yeah, apparently us omnivores and carnivores can only get omega-3 through things like fish, and you're going to get some through eggs and stuff like that when you're eating chicken eggs that have been, if the chickens have been eating purslane and things like that, you're going to get it through that as well. And apparently that has been converted so our bodies can recognize it. But that was 15 years ago or so that information was around, so I don't know any more on that, so don't quote me on that. There was a study done on it, so you can go and look that up. Omega-3 in plant form, can humans absorb it? And find that out for yourself. But yeah, that was the sort of consensus, was that no, we can't absorb it. But purslane's also high in quite a few other vitamins. I think vitamin C is one of them from memory. But yeah, it's a very good plant for you. It doesn't taste bad, it just tastes like lettuce, I guess. And yeah, so anyway, that's just a bit on something that might, even in life, if you come across. It was funny because there was this horse, and it was not a very nice looking horse, and weeds sort of aren't nice looking to us because we're taught to not particularly like them. Anyway, this horse wasn't particularly nice looking, and I went to have a look at it for the riding school that some of you know I had for people with disabilities. I had a charity in Brisbane, and I went and looked at this horse, and it was a really good horse. Like, it was a really, I did look past its not prettiness, and ended up purchasing this horse for the school, and it ended up working there for quite some years and being a really good horse. It's the same sort of thing with weeds and things like that. They might not look pretty, we might be taught to kind of keep away from them, but sometimes they can actually be beneficial to us and help to keep us here longer, I guess, and provide us with good food, or provide a certain nutrient to the ground. A lot of your blue and purple weeds that people really don't like because they're invasive, which they are, and they're horrible apparently. I actually think they're quite pretty, but but they're the bane of some people's existence. They actually provide things like copper to the soil, and if you make them into a tea, you're also pulling them out, so they're not going to grow there again as long as you get them before they go to seed, because then you might have that problem. But if you get them before they go to seed and you put them in a compost tea, they can actually provide a viable copper to that soil so that the next plants can utilize that, and actually then that becomes part of our food chain, so to speak. So when we pick that bean or that whatever we've grown there, even that mulberry for example, then it will probably have traces of copper in it that is good for us. I'm not talking about like copper pipe copper, because that's not so good, but copper that our bodies can actually use, because it's a really good mineral for a lot of reasons. It's just the way that we sort of get it is sometimes questionable because we're getting it in the wrong form. It's a bit like magnesium, you know, when I can't remember the type of magnesium now, but I'm really good at that, forgetting things when I need, you know, when I need that information. But anyway, I think it's magnesium, I don't know, it's not sulfate, it's something, this type of magnesium that's actually not good for us. And then everyone, you know, is taking magnesium, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are taking magnesium, the stuff that's good for you, the oxide or the chloride. I think it's, yeah, chloride, oxide are the ones that we take. So magnesium oxide is like your Epsom salt type magnesium, and then, you know, that you'd put in a bath and absorb it through your skin that way. And then you've got chloride, and there's another one, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head anyway. And then you've got like chelated minerals and things like that. But anyway, there's a type of magnesium that they use in a lot of like aerosol cans and stuff, I believe, and it's actually not very good for us to absorb because it's the wrong type and the body doesn't like it, and it's can cause some symptoms and things like that. It's the same with copper, it's the same with iron. You know, there's different forms, and different forms are better than others, or different forms can actually be detrimental. So just looking at weeds in a different way, I guess, than, you know, they're horrible, evil banes of our existence. They're not always that way, and they're actually doing the earth a service. They were created for a reason, I guess. It probably wasn't supposed to be like this in the original Garden of Eden. I don't think there would have been weeds, because the ground would have been covered, and, you know, it would have been a pretty awesome place to be. But you know, the human species fell, and there was that whole thing that happened, and then we ended up with broken earth and all sorts of problems, and so there had to be a solution to those problems, or we'd all be dead because there'd be no oxygen. So just looking at things in a different light, I guess, is one of the things that I've learned from the garden. You know, not always looking at things the way other people look at them, and not always taking them at face value, doing a bit more deeper research on that, and figuring out that, yeah, it's not always a bad thing. So I was going to do a really short video, and I've rambled on now for a few minutes. So anyway, moving on. The colour of the elderberry leaves is really interesting. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed that, but I find it like a bit of a landmark for me, because I'm kind of attracted to difference of colour with my lack of eyesight. It sort of sticks out, and, you know, the berries that this provides are extremely high in vitamin C. They're very good at getting rid of viruses. They're antiviral. And also the flowers of this plant you can eat, but the leaves and everything else is actually toxic, and you don't want to be eating that. You also want to process the berries in some kind of heat before you eat them too much. You can probably get away with eating one or two. They don't taste very good before they've been either dehydrated or made into a syrup or anything like that. But they're very, very good at getting rid of viruses anyway, and, you know, it's just something that I enjoy, the actual plant of them, even though you can't eat it. It's just a good landmark for me to sort of know where I am in the garden. And people seem to notice them as well, like, oh, what's that plant, that's different. And underneath them we've got strawberries growing and some chocolate mint, and that's another thing that I love to do, is bring people that sort of haven't experienced, or maybe they're new to gardening, bring them down here and show them all the different mints. I've got at the moment 3 different. I've got the normal peppermint, I've got this chocolate mint underneath the elderberry, and I've got berries and cream mint under a pear tree. So sharing the garden is really, like, it's an amazing thing, because, you know, people get to learn different things and try different things that they may not have tried before, and then that sort of piques their interest and hopefully gets more gardens happening and more people sharing those gardens. And, you know, I'll give cuttings out to people if I think, you know, I've studied herbs for a very long time, and if I think a certain herb, because herbs are really easy to grow, if I think a certain herb is going to help someone, I will actually give them the dried herb to start with to get them going, see if it's going to work, all that sort of thing, and then I will give them the plant itself so that they can actually provide. It's a bit like teaching a man to fish and feeding the man. You know, you can catch a fish for a man or something and feed him for a day, or you can teach him to fish and feed him for a lifetime. It's that sort of principle of giving people those plants to sort of help them heal themselves rather than me doing all the work, sort of thing. So I'll actually give them dehydrated leaves, and then if that's what works for them, I will then give them, if I can access it, because there are some herbs that either don't grow here, although most do, or they're just very hard to get a hold of because they're rare or whatever the situation is. So yeah, if I have it growing here, I will take a cutting from that plant usually and strike it up for them and give them that live plant with roots already developed, so they can either put it straight into their garden or they can keep it in a pot inside and use that herb for the rest of their lives, really. So, you know, sharing the garden sort of goes beyond the garden, if you like, and I think that's really important for all of us to share our knowledge, whether that be in, you know, specialising in herbs, which is what I do, sort of thing. Well, I actually have been studying nutrition for a long time, not officially, I'm just about to start officially, but unofficially been studying for a long time, and to help myself, and so I take a particular interest in nutrition, and that sort of has led me to the garden. So yeah, I especially enjoy, you know, just seeing even, you know, adults that maybe they're kind of serious, they take life really seriously, they're a bit stressed, and they'll come out to the garden, you'll give them some chocolate mint, and it sort of tastes a bit like mint slice. I don't know if you've had like Arnott's mint slice, but probably some of you from overseas may not have, but I'm not sure. And you know, it's got that strong peppermint, it's got a little bit of sort of sweetness to start with, and then it's got real strong peppermint, and it takes you back, you know, it's got that sort of reminiscent feature to it, and it really sort of, you know, makes them smile and enjoy themselves, you know, giving them a raspberry straight off the plant, giving them strawberries or whatever's sort of happening at the time just seems to, I don't know, relieve stress a bit, I guess, and sort of make them think about something else. And you know, that's really special too. So share your gardens, guys. I'll now go and show you my tomato plant, because I haven't for a while, and I've just caged it up today because it was getting a bit too big. It's not producing much, but you know, you get that sometimes when you're a bit slack like me. I'm like one of the slackest gardeners probably on this Shedwars thing, but anyway, we'll go and have a look at that, and that'll be the end for today. So thanks guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Tomato plant and the creeping thyme down underneath. You can see it outgrew its stake. I didn't know how big it was going to get, so just had to guesstimate that. But anyway, it got a bit big, so I put a cage over the top of it. So there you go. I'd like it to have produced more than 2 tomatoes, but it may still do. We've got a fair while till winter, so yeah, it's just my neglect really, I think.